We're following breaking news out of Israel, where President Biden is meeting with first responders and victims' families. Let's listen.
I'm Ellie Beer. I'm an American, Jew and Israeli. And we have 7,000 first responders, United Hatzalah. We're spread around Israel. Our response is usually 90 seconds, and we were there in the first moments seeing the atrocities that happened. We saw women that were raped and then murdered, children, little babies that were torn around, taken away from their parents, murdered in front of their parents, heads chopped off. Our volunteers were brave. We have 2 volunteers who were murdered. One of them is an Arab, one Arab volunteer of United Hatzalah, and one Jewish volunteer of United Hatzalah. One was captured in 9 hours. He was tied to a pole while they were shooting other people. And we have 2 volunteers who are in Gaza now, captured by the terrorists, and 8 volunteers injured. We were very proud to serve the people in Israel. A lot of us are Americans, and we, United Hatzalah, we're in the front lines of every emergency. We're so proud that you, the President of the United States, came here to Israel to support this country. You uplifted the whole spirit in this country and all the Jewish people in the world. So I want to thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What you do. Thank you.
I love you.
Dana Koka, moved here from New York 8 years ago. I'm a physician in pediatric emergency medicine. The very day I received calls from the hospital to prepare for a mass casualty event, the likes of which I never could have prepared for in my life. And I treated wounded people, soldiers, civilians, but mostly the children, as I am a pediatrician. So babies burned in their mother's arms, some with stories that I don't think they'll ever recover from. I treat Palestinian children, I treat Jewish children, I treat Arab-Israeli children, and when my resident calls me at home at night that somebody is not doing well, I don't ask where they're from. We currently, in the hospital I work in, have over 50 Palestinian families, and we treat them the same as ours. Just asking for some medical assistance, attention to our children who are over there.
There's something I can tell you. I got a phone call saying my wife and daughter were dead. My 2 boys were dead. I got a phone call, my son on the rack, killed. I understand a little bit about this. But guess what? A physician makes a gigantic difference. You know who else does? Nurses. Nurses. Thank you for what you do. You help fill that black hole. Feel in our chest. God love you. Thank you.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Mo Farid, and first of all, I would like to thank you for this unprecedented support in Israel. I deeply appreciate it. On peace times, I'm a CEO of a startup company called BOEI and a former Fulbright at MIT and Harvard. I also have an NGO that empowers the youth at risk, both Arabs and Jews, but since October 7th, we're 100% soldiers, me and my brothers and sisters from all the country. And we just grabbed a small bag, took our stuff, and just volunteered with all the brave men. And please, 2 things that I've loved to ask from you. First of all, please keep supporting us in eliminating Hamas once and for all, not for the sake of us, even not for the Israelis in the south, but for the sake of our children and grandchildren. And the second thing, we are fighting the frontier against evil and against anti-Semitism. Please keep doing the same in the U.S. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is David Zabanovich. I'm the head of the families of the Hostages Network. I'm a voice for a few hundreds of families. The reality is very important. I'm the 2nd generation of the Holocaust. What I'm seeing now in these stories, it's even worse than that. So please do whatever you can for the families. They are taking the first people who are sick, ill. Please help us to push the Red Cross to give them medicine. We have all the medicine gathered together to send them. If they lose their life, they won't get the medicine, the diabetic, the Crohn, the people who are in June, they need all that. This is the first priority. And later on, whatever you can help, there's hundreds of hundreds, the infants, babies. teenagers, elder, injured people, sick people. It's kind of, it's more humanitarian than anything. So please do your best. Thank you much.
You're obviously doing your best.
My name is Ahmed Darawshi. I'm the cousin of Ahmed Darawshi, the Muslim paramedic that was at the party, and he refused to evacuate scene. He continued to treat his Jewish colleagues and the Jewish goers to the party. Ahmed brought us a lot of pain and sorrow, but also pride, because he didn't lose his humanity. He didn't distinguish between Jewish or Arab, Muslim or Christian. Anyone that he needed to treat, he treated. That's the legacy of our family. And in my day job, I work to bring Jewish and Arab teachers to work together, and Arab and Jewish youth to meet with each other, usually for their first meeting. But we're proud of his legacy. And
My father would look at you and say, son, you got good blood.
thank you. If needed, we'll do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, thank you so much for coming here and encouraging us. I'm here wearing 3 hats. The first is that I lost 2 of my brothers-in-law. One of them is a citizen of the U.S. as well, a great warrior, a colonel that died in the first day of the war. The other one is the son of a woman, my mother-in-law, who has lost her husband 50 years ago on the same date in the Yom Kippur War. Both of them were heroes who were fighting on Israeli land in the cities and villages to save civilians. The other thing is that I'm part of a legal scholars and activists who are here to make sure that the atrocities that were executed against civilians, children, and men, and the elderly, and particularly women, will be acknowledged by institutions worldwide, and thank you for your support in this. And the last one is that I'm president of an academic college in the South, and that the academia in Israel is now having 200,000 of our students fighting for our safety, to be able to get back to higher education as a hope for Jews and Arabs alike, where I have 35% of my students Bedouin from the Negev. And this is our hope, through higher education, to bring us back together with the hope that we need at this moment.
I'm married to a college professor, too.
I know, and it's an education college as well that we have. She's in my
God love you.
Mr. President, we're going to go right this way.
First thing you do.
Yes, we'll just in the minutes and in the hours and days that followed the October 7th terrorist attacks, there were images and stories that emerged of horror, and as you said, Mr. President, that were unimaginable. But what also emerged were stories of heroism and of survival and of incredible hope, and people coming together in community and national service. And Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, the folks that we have gathered with us here today are representative of all of that, and representative of the unity and the resilience of the Israeli people, and the light that is shining through this incredible darkness. Mr. Secretary.
I've had the opportunity to meet so many Israelis over the last few days that I've been in and out of Israel. I've heard the stories. I've heard about the lives lost and changed forever. We know that virtually every Israeli has been touched by the bloody hand of Hamas. But what I found is a nation that's united, yes, in grief, but also united in resolve. And we know the pride that Israel takes in the ability to defend itself by itself, but as we want to make very clear, You don't have to do that because we're here. We're here too, to make sure that you're able to defend yourselves and to deal with something that is, I think, on a basic human level, almost unimaginable. So hard for any of us to process or to understand, but it's been so important to meet and talk to so many of you because that's what makes it real. And no one understands that better, no one feels that more than the President of the United States. Mr. President.
Folks, there's an Irish poet named William Butler Yeats, and he wrote a line. He said, "Too long a suffering makes a stone of the heart." Too long a suffering makes a stone of the heart. The thing that I found in just this real quick meeting with all of you is none of your hearts have turned to stone yet. Every one of you talked about what you have to do. Every one who talked to you about having to reach out. Talked about whether or not they're a Jew or a Muslim. Reach out. And, I've often said, I remember the first time that I was in Israel with Golda Meir. She was just before the Six-Day War. And she was telling me how terrible everything was, which it was. She kept flipping the maps up and down behind her, and all of a sudden she looked at me and she said, "Would you like a photograph?" And I thought, that's unusual. And she just got up and walked out the door outside her office. And we're standing there having a photograph taken like you and I are standing looking at the press. And she, without looking at me, she turned, she like this, she said, "You look worried, Senator." I said, "I am." She said, "Don't worry, we Jews have a secret weapon in our fight. We have no place else to go." Well, the truth of the matter is, if there weren't an Israel, we'd have to invent one. The truth of the matter is that I believe that, as I went home and said, I got in trouble at the time, but it's true. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. And I think the security and safety of Jews worldwide is anchored in the continued vibrance of the State of Israel. That's what I think it's about at its core. And so I've admired you all, this country, for so long. And I'm convinced that more people know your responses to what's happening, as opposed to just what war and peace is about. The more they're going to be inclined to embrace Israel. And but a lot more to say, but I'd like to talk to you in private if I can.
Thank you.
That I was shown by my defense lawyer.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
So we've just been watching President Biden. He's been kind of making several stops today, but this one was to meet with first responders and victims, and it turns out that many of these first responders are also victims. Speaking to individuals who have volunteered their time as first responders, are not getting paid. He spoke to two groups who made it a point of pointing out that within their group were both Jews and Arabs. One group had one Jew and one Arab killed. Two individual volunteers taken hostage, and they are describing, really, Vlad, sort of a hellscape that they descended on after the terrorist attack by Hamas. The president earlier today also met with Benjamin Netanyahu. We're probably going to speak about that, but essentially pledging or reinforcing America's solidarity and support for Israel.
Yeah, it is striking to see the president of the United States meeting with those individuals there. And I was struck, Anne-Marie, by sort of how close they got to him and how they shared their stories. And the stories ranged, as they will, because everybody's an individual. But it felt for me as if they were incredibly grateful to be able to get that close to the president of the United States and share a personal story. There was no politics, as far as I could tell, in
Yeah.
listening as we were sort of eavesdropping on those conversations, there's no politics or ideology. It was just, here's my story, here's how it affected me, here's how it affected my family and my neighbors.
Yeah, in fact, the first gentleman said to him that you have uplifted all of Israel with your trip.